So welcome to the APICTA 2013 briefing, and you're all here because you are a winner or a merit recipient for the 2013 iAwards. So congratulations on achieving that success, and it's hard to believe it's 3 weeks ago now, isn't it? Almost a month. So we hope that you've thoroughly enjoyed your celebrations and you've taken the time to consider whether or not you'd like to compete and represent Australia. We did send through some material through to you yesterday, which confirmed which category you are to compete in. There are some slight revisions in some categories due to the mapping that's required between APICTA and iAwards. If you have any questions about that, please do contact myself in the next day or so to ask any questions. So we'll run through the delegation, the key dates, the program that's being put in place by Hong Kong, the concurrent events and activities, what are the categories, the eligibility, the nomination process, the judging, the criteria, and making use of your win and any questions that you may have. So APICTA, it's a bit of a mouthful, is the Asia Pacific ICT Alliance Awards. So this is an alliance of 17 member economies across Asia Pacific. The program is designed to stimulate ICT innovation and creativity, very similar to the iAwards, but now it's an opportunity from being at a state level to national to international. This year, the host of APICTA is the Hong Kong Computer Society, as in Australia, the Australian Computer Society with the Australian Information Industry Association and the PSC Foundation are the hosts of the iAwards. So the Hong Kong Computer Society is hosting this year, and they are the secretariat who will be hosting your involvement. The Australian delegation this year will be led by Jim Ellis, who is the iAwards Chief Judge. You may recognise Jim from his photograph. He may have been in one of your judging sessions. He was there to audit throughout the process. Russell Yardley is the iAwards Chair, and he's the Australian Exco member for APICTA. He's actually heading to Hong Kong this weekend. And Phil Holmes, who is also on the call with MCI Events, is going to play the role of APICTA Australian Economy Coordinator, and he will be able to be contacted from the general contact details for iAwards from tomorrow, and he will be managing your involvement in APICTA this year. The key dates, so we've asked you to confirm your attendance, which is great, and we have allocated to the relevant categories. There are 2 nominees that are possibly, I don't have an option for them to progress. If there are some changes, if somebody drops out of a category, we can have up to 3, I'll talk about that a bit later, we can have up to 3 nominees per category, and because we had so many people wanting to go forward to Hong Kong, we're at maximum levels. So if anybody is considering not going, please let us know, because it will make a difference to somebody else maybe being able to compete in your stead. So the host economy, which is Hong Kong, will be sending through the nomination forms through to MCI, and they will forward them on to you. You then forward them back. Unlike the iAwards, where you could download the forms and upload them yourselves and make changes and go back in and out of the portal and add in your supporting documentation, etc., it is a centralised process. So there is one person who uploads and manages the liaison to Hong Kong, which is Phil, and so you have to submit the nomination form through that process. So it's in that way it becomes a country to country, well, actually economy to economy. We use the term economy in APICTA because we have Hong Kong and Macau and Taipei, Taiwan now. And of course, in the sensitivities of the Asia Pacific region, country is a tricky one. So you'll hear the term economy coordinator. So just refer to yourselves as I'm with the Australian economy team and economy delegation. The 21st and 30th, MCI will submit the nomination forms to APICTA, and that gives the time frame for loading everything and having all the material and checking anything if there's needed. October 7, the deposit of the booking for your hotel is required. In October 15, distribution of notes to nominees, which is a guide for your involvement. And November 24 is when you actually arrive and you do equipment testing. So the day before your session, you actually go in and do a test run, a little bit different to iAwards. The judging will be happening on November 25 and 26. There will be a welcome reception, and then there will be the awards presentation and gala dinner. So this information is available on the current APICTA website, and I recommend you look at that regularly to see what changes there may be. So as you see here, we have the process and the location where we're going to be at the Cyberport and then the Hong Kong Exhibition Centre. Similar to the iAwards, there's 2 days of judging. You'll be allocated your time. But in the time that you're not judging, we do encourage you to take opportunities that have been provided for other concurrent activities. You've got a Cyberport tour. There's also the computer conference happening. They're also allocating some student networking sessions for the students. And then there are some different seminars and past APICTA Hong Kong winners showcase. And then there's some tours as well. And it is an opportunity for you to connect with people in the region. Hong Kong is a great pathway into Asia. And we do encourage you to use this as an opportunity to explore potential business partnerships and look at the opportunities that this event actually enables you to access. So as I mentioned, there's a number of concurrent events. These links are all on the website, and you can go and have a look. And we encourage you to take up the Kind Hosted Partners program that they've put together. So in the APICTA Awards, there are 17 categories. They are predominantly the same as the iAwards, except where we have made some slight adjustments. The particular category is consumer. That doesn't exist, but consumer for iAwards covered new media and entertainment, supply chain, and tourism and hospitality. Anybody who is in the regional and resources category, they may have been moved over to the sustainability and green IT category for the regional submissions because there is no regional focus category for APICTA, and also for the resources, it is in the industrial application. They were decided as 2 categories that we wish to grow in Australia because of the unique market opportunities in Australia. But they still map fine through to the industrial application and the sustainability category. You will have to look at the different criteria. The summaries are provided on the website. So eligibility, the same way that you had to be eligible to nominate and win through the iAwards process, we do operate under the same eligibility structure. So all of you have met this. The issue may be if it is a joint company, a joint venture, or a foreign company. The reason why we've always said you had to be at least 51% from Australia is because if you're a joint venture between Hong Kong and Australia, then we've got to make sure that you're actually representing Australia, not Hong Kong, in the competition. So that's why it's important to know where the development has taken place and the representatives are representing their economy. Regarding the product, whether it's a product or solution, it must meet the criteria about the intellectual property rights. Again, you would have only been able to progress through iAwards if you've met that criteria. And very importantly, that the R&D and design must be done within the member economy. And we do say 51%, which acknowledges that, in particularly, say, for Australia, we may have developers overseas that are partnering with us because of the business model that is quite common, but as long as the majority of that development and design, and particularly the conceptualisation of that, has been conducted in Australia, then that should be fine. So again, a very long slide of information, but again, you can read this from the PowerPoint later to just clarify. The nomination again is 17 categories, and there is a judging subcommittee, a judging committee for APICTA, which I myself have been, as iAwards executive judge, I've been a member of that committee over a number of years, and we make sure that we do have that alignment, and that ensures that you have the best chance of representing Australia and succeeding in achieving an award, and make sure that we get that alignment. The economy coordinator is responsible for making sure that all the nominees meet those requirements. In that recommendation of which category you fit into, then myself as executive judge and the chief judge have both verified through the judging council that you are eligible for this particular category. As with any categories, probably sometimes there's a perception that you might have been better in a different category, but you're in the category that makes the most sense for Australia to put you forward in. And some solutions could be in multiple categories, but in the end we've made the decision and recommendation based on all the information we have. As I mentioned, that there's a maximum of 3 nominations per economy per category, which means that in a category where we had a winner and 2 merits, they've progressed seamlessly. If there was a category that had 1 winner and no merits, but I then had nominees from a different category that I felt were appropriately aligned to that, that's where they've been allocated. So that's where you will find you may be now competing against the same that were in the panel with you when you were doing the iAwards. And I have had the situation in the industrial application in Malaysia a couple of years ago where the company that won at the state and the one that got the merit swapped places at national and then swapped places again at international. So they were 5%, within 5% of each other, all the way through from state to national to international. So quite a unique situation. But in the end, it's going to be about the judges, their interpretation, the way you've presented, the way you address the criteria, and the competition that you're competing against in the different economies. So there's some slight restrictions regarding the tertiary and student projects. They just have to be adhered to. The R&D category has to be, it should not be actively marketed or already in the market. And so we have actually moved one nominee who was R&D, who won R&D placed, but we've put them into a different category because they are now commercially available in the marketplace, and that means that I just want to make sure that they have the best chance. I don't want anybody going forward in a category where somebody may disqualify them. The other categories, again, you must show that it's a finished product. I mean, that's the key point to this R&D and student, is about that first early phase. And it's also important to note that entries that won APICTAs in the previous years cannot be resubmitted. Same restrictions we have with the iAwards, but Australia limits it to 3 years. And importantly, that there is, in your nomination form, you've got a limit. So just being clear for you what the nomination process is. So it's very similar to what you've gone through with iAwards, except that it's a limitation of how many in a category, whereas we had no limitation. Oh, no, we had a limitation per state, a winner and 2 merits per state. So the judging is based exactly the same way, on exactly the same criteria, which is uniqueness, market potential, or it could be contribution, such for community or government, it's slightly different. Functionality, features, quality, and presentation. And each of those information about the categories are similar to what you've received. We basically use exactly the same details from APICTA through to iAwards, and even the new categories that have been developed, they adhere to that as well. Judges are across the member economies, and you may have an Australian judge, you may not. They don't restrict it, but we do need to have judges from different countries on the panels, and you have 3 to 4 judges. And the judges all sign again a conflict of interest and a confidentiality. The judges at APICTA have predominantly all been judging for many years. There's 1 or 2 judges that have been judging for like 15 years. So they've seen a great deal of development over that time. So it's a really great opportunity for you to pitch in front of some of the leading business people and entrepreneurs throughout Asia Pacific. So it's a wonderful opportunity, similar to the process you went through for the iAwards in Australia. So the process is that there will be the venue and a cyberport. You'll be given a map, told where you're meant to be. You need to be there at least 15 minutes before the presentation. As I mentioned before, you will have a session the day before or the morning before, or depending when your timing is, for you to be able to do a tech check. That means you'll also then be able to find the room, know where you're going, and just having that walk helps with your confidence. When you know exactly where you're walking in the building and can envision yourself walking into that room and giving a presentation, you'll actually be given a little bit more of an edge than you were within the iAwards. Just with our restrictions, we weren't able to deliver that for Australia. So you will be guided around by the Secretariat, and there'll be ushers. There's often a lot of volunteer students milling around and helping with the team. So unlike the iAwards where the judge comes and collects you, you will actually have somebody be an usher for you. So each of the entries has 35 minutes, the same as iAwards, except that they've actually, I think that they've decided to give you 20 minutes for presentation. And so they're allowing a little bit less time for the judges' deliberation. It is the Asia Pacific ICT Alliance, but English is the official language. It's the official language of ASEAN. But Australian accents can be difficult to comprehend at times, and also so can the judges' accents. Sometimes you may find it difficult, particularly if they're asking questions. So you need to just make sure that you speak slowly. Clearly is clearly and slowly, obviously. So speak clearly and make sure that whoever is presenting is the clearest speaker of all of you, doesn't have a very thick accent, and is open and engaging. So for Hong Kong, they've decided this year that they're going to give 20 minutes to deliver the presentation with only 5 minutes for Q&A. It was actually something that we're considering for Australia, but they'll trial it in Hong Kong, and if they like it, they'll do it for Australia next year probably. There'll be 9 rooms allocated for the presentations, and you either have day one or day 2. We do encourage you to be there for the full time, and the scheduling is quite a complex process, the same way it was for iAwards. If there's anything that's going to be late, it'll be notifying you of that. But as soon as that information is made available from Hong Kong, that would be forwarded to you by Phil as the Australian Economy Coordinator. He is the one point of contact. You do not need to contact Hong Kong, and we encourage you not to. They have many different economies to liaise with, and that process works very well. Australia hosted APICTA and Associo in 2009, and it's a lot of work. So they will give you an AV and projector, etc., but you must bring your own laptop, the same within the iAwards. Again, they will still have 3 different member economies. That's what they've decided for Hong Kong this year. They will be managing. I'm not sure how they're going to do their scoring. They used to do it online with our system. This year it may be paper again, I'm not sure. The judging process is final, and then the results will be at the presentation ceremony. So same process. There is a slight change this year with APICTA, is that they the highest winning score has to exceed 7. We had it at 6, which was what the APICTA number was before, but now it's gone to 7, and a maximum of 2 merits will be given to nominees, and they are again within that 95% of the winning score, and their score must be at 6.6 or above. If there's no winner in a category, merits may be given to nominees if they are the minimum of 6.6. No, if they're less than 6.6. So there may be an opportunity, and there has been in the past. Nobody's won a category, but there's been a merit, and that again is up to the judges and how they wish to interpret the criteria, and also how the nominees are presenting their solutions. So the student categories are slightly different, and theirs is a little bit lower. So the bar has been raised. The debate I always have is, well, if you as a judge know that winning means 7, you will just judge accordingly. Whether winning means 6 or 7 or 8, you then judge accordingly. But as you get higher into those numbers of up to 10, you've got less room to wriggle around with as far as your percentages are concerned. So, you know, I don't believe anybody should be worried about it, but it's really important that you're aware of that change. And it just means that, you know, you're definitely going to be judged at a high level, and I'm sure that you will do very well. I've actually put in there, there's a slide about make use of your win. I might go back a bit. I wanted to actually just talk about, I'm actually going to go back to the criteria. So one of the things that you're going to be presenting, you have the material that you had in your nomination form from round 1. You then provided some supporting documentation. You then gave a presentation. The presentation you gave for Australia compared to what you will give for APICTA probably needs to be slightly different. The reason I say that is because you are going into an international context. I mentioned before about language. And I mentioned before about being clear in not just your speaking voice, but I want you to think about your language you use to describe your solution as well. Look, Australia has quite, you know, a multicultural society, and we do a lot of international business. But for those of you who this is the first time you've gone overseas, or the first time you've had an opportunity to talk in a business context, it's really important to think of some basics and keeping it really simple and very clear. And because you are to be judged on your on the criteria, I know I have said it repeatedly over the past many years that to win you must meet the criteria and meet it and be the best. You have to answer that criteria the best. Now, for Australia, the feedback, the suggestions we gave this year was be compelling about the story you tell, about the solution. And that's because in Australia, the judges are judging the innovation at a more sophisticated level in this, I would say, insofar as the other types of entrepreneurial and innovation competitions that we run in Australia. So they really were interested in the innovation as much as the technical competency, etc. In APICTA, really, you've got to make sure you answer those questions. So if you would like to structure your presentation under what makes our solution unique, what is the market potential, and you need to explain what the market is for Australia. And if you are already exporting overseas, then that's great. You've got data around that. But one of the challenges, I suppose, is market potential. Australia is an exceptionally small market with the 26 million we have. And you might sell into one state government and there's the potential to sell it to another state or to a federal government. But the reality is once you hit that saturation, you've got to see where there are other markets for you. So helping the judges understand where you fit in the market you are. Whereas in Australia, you could have made those statements, and the judges would have had a context to understand what you were, where your position is as far as market share. The functionality and features. I'm not a big fan of lots of diagrams and use case scenarios, etc. But you do still have to talk about the functionality and the features. I mentioned in my briefings for the nationals, don't spend all your time on the functionality and features, but you still have to. And if you look at it, it's still, one of the 5 criteria areas. So it's really saying do include it, but make sure it's balanced. The quality and application of the technology, again, is always a bit of a tricky one to try to convey, but if you have any of the ISO standards or any of the other environments in which you're working in, they're the type of things that help put context to it. Again, quality in Australia versus quality assurance in other economies is different. So if you've got something there you wish to highlight, then I recommend you do. And the application of the technology again is about the reliability, the scalability. Is it being operated in the cloud, and what are your cloud? Is it a data center, or whatever those structures you need to make sure that you cover in your presentation, in your submission. And then, of course, the presentation, the skills will be basically how you are presenting. So, were you clear? Did you talk well to the judges? And did you, respond to the questions that they had? So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that, particularly on the criteria and how you may wish to put forward your innovation. And I mean, for the iAwards, I is for innovation. For APICTA, it really is the balance of all of these 5 criteria. So hopefully that will give you a bit more of an understanding and give you a framework to make it clearer for you to make sure that you nail every single one of those criteria so that the judges know, golly gosh, I can really see how unique this is. I can see that they've absolutely got hit market potential and they've got growth opportunity. I can definitely see the features and functionality of this solution compared to others that have been presenting today. Yes, there will be Wi-Fi available, and with Asia, it's pretty good. Regarding feedback about your presentation from Australia, look, I have put forward to the iAwards Judging Council that we do need to create a mechanism by which feedback can be given. At the moment, there isn't. There is an option within the system for judges to put some notes, but again, it is a bit of a process, so that's why I'm giving the feedback specifically today about where I think people should focus their energies as far as their presentations are concerned, to make sure that they are making the job easier for the judges to actually make their assessment. All right, so that's the questions about the criteria there. I mentioned before that we recommend that you make the most of your win, similar to what we'd said at the previous briefings. A number of you have already issued media releases and showcase the fact that you will be heading to Hong Kong. So that's really great. And if you haven't had a chance to do that, then this is the lead up that we encourage you to do. Doing a blog post, having a send-off party for your team, whatever you might want to do to drive profile of the fact that you're heading over. And representing Australia, which is a really important thing. So I'm just going to look at the questions and see if there are any extras. Somebody's asked a question if the criteria is equally weighted or not. It isn't. It is slightly different. It is slightly different, and each each category is also slightly different. It's sort of evenly spread across. When the materials made available, if the materials made available from the host economy, that will come through in a guide for you, and that's as much information as I can sort of give on that point. Somebody's asked a question about organising travel and accommodation. That is up to yourselves to organise. There are some recommended hotels. We also have a travel partner, Two Hats Travel, who has been supporting us throughout the iAwards, and they have some options available. So you will be sent information about that once it's available from the coordinating people in Hong Kong. So I just wanted to clarify again the comment about the criteria is equally weighted. It is slightly different than no, it's not slightly different. It's exactly the same as it was for iAwards. You just don't know what it is. I'm sorry. It is something that is kept confidential for the judging. It just happens to be the process. Some places do publish the weighting, others don't. But in the end, the presentation criteria and quality is not as important as the other previous criteria, if that makes sense. Okay, sorry, I'm just going back to another question. Somebody asked a question of how many entries there are in each category. Look, there are 16 economies, but not every economy sends somebody in every category. So the countries that are always there are Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Thailand, Brunei, Thailand. They're sort of probably the most, and Australia are the most, the largest delegations. Malaysia is usually a massive delegation, so they will usually take up their 3. Australia taking up 3 slots in each category this year is the biggest we'll have ever done. Every year it's slightly different, but I think because Hong Kong is such a great gateway market into Asia, it's makes a lot of sense for people from Australia to compete. So last year it was in Brunei, and so of course Brunei is an unknown quantity. Yes, it's good to compete, but what were the business opportunities for people? Maybe not as high. Next year it will be in Pakistan. I'm actually heading to Pakistan next week to give them some advice about hosting, and of course again that there's concerns of people maybe not attending in Pakistan next year. So you could be competing to a maximum of 30 in a category, but I doubt you'd ever see that. You'd usually only have, there could be an opportunity where there are 3 Australians competing and only 1 from 3 other economies. That's just one scenario that could play out. Regarding the deposit for the hotel, that's the hotel that's been organised through the host, and again, that information is available on the APICTA website. Which category has normally the most entries? Look, government is always a very large category, and even for Australia, we're sending 3, and I could send 4 because one of my other categories, I can't fit them anywhere else. They need to go into government because they're a government department, and health is usually very popular. What's popular in Australia is not always what's popular overseas. Australia finds it very difficult to nominate anybody in tourism and hospitality, but that's quite a popular one throughout Asia Pacific. So really, it just depends which one. So on the current question, will the nominees for each APICTA category be made available in advance? I think you will know who the other nominees in Australia are, but as far as who the other nominees in the other economies, no, that's not usually known. And even this year, with our promotion from the winners in the state level, you all had a much better understanding, and particularly through the YouTube videos, you all had a much better understanding of who you were competing against in your category. That is unlikely for APICTA. Basically, you will not know until you're there. I've never really, there's not, I'm just thinking back to the history, and there's never really been an opportunity for that that I'm aware of in the past. Somebody's asked a question, can there be two presenters? Yes, there can be two. I know we had a limit on three, but it's quite common to have teams, the student teams. If you get a chance to connect with the students, they're the most fantastic energy you'll ever come across. And they're often there in teams in their school colours, or they've made a team T-shirt and the like. So that's, you can definitely do the same thing as well. So somebody's asked a question here, is it preferable to convey that the context of your innovation not only addresses Australia alone, but also globally, or at least Asia Pacific? Absolutely. Very good question. You are there to represent Australia and show what great innovations Australia has, and to say across the Asia Pacific region, this is the best solution that we've seen in government, e-government, in ICT this year. But it's always good to try and contextualise it if you can, because it helps the understanding. But the reality is, don't go too far out of your comfort zone. If you don't know anything about the market, then don't make a claim that you're not going to be able to back up with fact. Because knowing your luck, you'll present it to somebody who's from that economy and they say, well, actually, no. And also, it's a matter of saying, this is the best innovation in Australia and we've done this. The same thing that we find in Australia is that somebody in Brisbane and somebody in Perth are doing the same thing, but because they're in Brisbane and Perth, they're so far away from each other, they have no idea that they're both doing a solution that are very similar. And it's only when they come together to compete, and then the judges look at it and say, hey, wait a minute, that's very similar to this other thing I know, or that other solution that's been just pitching today. That's the reality of business and things, is that we're all trying to look at similar problems and solve those problems through technology. So it's quite common that you're going to find something. So maybe do a little bit of research and understand if there's anything else in the market. But use this as an opportunity to consider about your business in relation to where it might be able to go. So he's asked a question about, do you have a total estimated cost of one person attending APICTA? How long is a piece of string, I asked? No. Look, it is an investment, and you do have to make a decision for your business that if you believe that winning an international award will significantly help your business, then it's worthwhile going. If you think that you are going to want to sell into Asia, absolutely, it is a great investment for you to make in your business. The same way it was a little bit with the iAwards. How much time did you take off work to attend and travel? How much time did it take you away from the rest of the business? Now, over the years, people have made decisions that it's not a priority for them, or it's just not the right time in their business development or their evolution of their solution, and that's why it very much is an individual's business decision. The cost is basically your airfare and airfare and hotel. Hong Kong can be expensive, so that's why we do encourage you to look at the deal that the offer on the APICTA website, but also what might be available through the options that the team at Two Hats Travel have been able to negotiate for you. But also look at last minute and what if, and frequent flyer points are a good way to get over when you need to, sort your budget out. But basically, it's really as much or as little as you want to spend. Hong Kong can be very expensive, and it can also, you can eat locally and eat quite cheaply, and it's great food, or you can go shopping and spend a fortune. So really, it's a preference there. So somebody else has asked a question about costs again. So I think everybody gets one ticket to the reception and one ticket to the gala dinner, and then you have to purchase extras on top. So if you're taking more than one person, you need to think about that. There may be a spouse program. If you wish to take a spouse, that's quite common. I've met many of my judges' partners over the years as they've attended various APICTAs. And, really, Australians, there might be an option to look at sharing apartments, rental apartments, as opposed to hotels. There are different ways you can look at managing your costs. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an understanding there. So I think I've covered all the questions that I've got here. There is another option that we will the iAwards team will continue to try and work on, which is to provide a briefing a little bit closer from Austrade and connecting you to Austrade. We do try to do that each year for the Australian delegation going over, and we invite the Australian ambassador or commission to meet with you, and also Austrade is there to specifically support Australian businesses, and so you can pay for services if you are looking at entering into that market. They're available to provide a guided business program for you and set up business meetings. So anybody interested in that, probably let Phil know, and then he can follow that up with Austrade. But then we'll also ask Austrade to do a general briefing about Hong Kong and the region and the opportunities that they see there and the priorities, and that way it'll give you a bit more of an understanding of Hong Kong as a market that you're going to visit, whereas today's session is predominantly about the actual APICTAs and what we're looking at. So that's the process for that. All right. Well, look, thank you very much for everybody's time. And so we've covered everything now. And if you have any questions, please do contact the team. Carly and myself will be finishing up tomorrow. And so if you have any questions, send them through today and tomorrow, and we'll do our best to answer. And then a lot of the material is all been documented and handed over to the new team that will be running iAwards from now on. And all the material is online. I recommend you continue to look at the APICTA 2013 website, which is apicta2013.org. And they will be updating it as it comes along. But Phil will be your contact moving forward, and I wish you all the best in representing Australia. It's a great experience. I've been a judge in, I've been through APICTA. I've been in Thailand, in Malaysia, and as I said, I'm going to Pakistan next week. So it is a great opportunity for Australian innovators to get out there on a regional stage and a world stage. And the experience for yourself and your teams is really one that I highly recommend. And I wish you all the best.